we ready? Lovely. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Professor Lisa Collins. I'm the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research and Innovation at the University of Surrey, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the Barbican Centre for the second Reclaim Network Plus conference. I myself am new to Surrey. I joined in October last year, so I've been here just over 6 months now. One of the things that really attracted me to this university, and particularly to this position, was really how the university works across the disciplines on these real-world challenges and really bringing the community in from all over the country and beyond to really focus in on some of the most complex challenges that the world is facing today. In my role, part of my remit is really to look at how we're doing research, what our research culture means to us, and how we can basically utilise that to really empower and enable the best kind of research that we can be doing. One of the things that we really want to push forward as we move forward, so we're currently drafting our new strategy, and one of the key things for us is how we work with communities, with practitioners, with various industry and government actors, and how we can bring them right into the heart of our research design from the very outset. I think this particular project, this network that you have, is such a good example of how to do this well. So we have wonderful examples downstairs. I had a really quick tour of all the different posters, and what an amazing array of projects that you have been working on over the last couple of years. It's absolutely fascinating. So bringing people in from the communities who are affected by the challenges that we're talking about, bringing them in and having them at the heart of the design of each and every project is just unbelievable. It means that what comes out of it at the end is going to have real impact. So this is research that's being done that's absolutely stellar in terms of its quality, but is also going to create real-world positive change. How amazing is that? So I think, firstly, congratulations to you all for being involved in such an amazing array of projects. So with my own personal research hat on, my background is I work very much in sustainable food production and looking at that agri-food system more broadly. And looking across that space, so much of the work that we do has focused historically on the rural spaces, but increasingly we're being asked to look at our more urban spaces and how we can bring those two worlds together. I think working alongside you and seeing the kind of work that you're doing here, I think our community could also really benefit from so much of the work that you're doing and the conversations that you've already been having. So there's an awful lot of work still to be done in this space. Just to pick out a few examples from downstairs, I saw posters on green spaces for health. I saw working with communities in all kinds of different contexts. The one that stood out to me particularly was rewilding Rhyl. Now, the reason that stands out to me is I'm originally from North Wales, and so we used to go to the Rhyl Sun Centre all the time, and I have to say, it was not the kind of place that you would necessarily associate with a green space. There was a lot of concrete involved. And I love North Wales. I go back all the time. My family's all based there. And so I'm absolutely delighted to see the rewilding of some of these places that historically have not been the greenest. So wonderful, thank you. The other thing that I'm particularly excited about looking down the agenda is seeing those sessions that are particularly dedicated to, as I mentioned, engaging those local communities, but also around exploring our artists' work on nature-based solutions and bringing all of those disciplines with very different perspectives and ways of communicating the problems as well as the solutions in very different ways. So I'm absolutely delighted to see such diversity. I want to emphasise just how invaluable networking at events like this really can be. So I hope you take full advantage of all the break sessions that are available throughout the day, connect with fellow professionals, and really, I think, build on what you've already got. You know how to do this, so it's really just how can you take the next step. This is such an inspirational group, and I really am so excited to hear what comes out of today and what goes forward from here. So I hope you find today enriching and inspiring. And so without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Prashant Kumar. Thank you so much, all of you, and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Collins, for opening the event. So it's a pleasure to have you all, and I believe that some of you possibly we saw you in the last kind of the conference. So you could see the progress, what we have done over the past year. Can we move the slides, please? Somehow. There. So what I'm going to do is, without taking too much time, just to introduce the network, especially for the colleagues who have come for the first time, possibly, this event. So this is a EPSRC Network Plus. So that was funded by the 3 councils. So this includes the EPSRC, NERC, and AHRC. And there are 5 universities who are involved in there. So the one is the University of Surrey, which leads alongside the UK Centre for Environment, Ecology and Hydrology, Bath, Warwick, and Bangor. So, so this is the team. So you could see those people in here. So you can please feel free to interact with them. So they represent the different universities, but they also come up with a very distinct expertise. So for example, we got ecological modeling covered by the UKCS side, through the arts and social sciences by Warwick, to the modeling, the water side on the Bath, and Bangor looking into the marine sciences. And we got our fantastic, the managers and our network fellow who have really worked hard to make this happen. So thanks to them for, organizing this event. When we started, this is around 40 partners we brought in together, and they came from different disciplines. And those, the sectors included the natural sciences, engineering, technology, social science, and mixed, and you could see a little bit of color coding to just give you an idea. And there were a number of universities, but also sorry, this one, yeah? Great. So the number of, the businesses, charities, local government, so there is quite a lot of involvement all across different sectors, and this is possibly one of the strengths of this, of this network. The whole idea of the network is to, to kind of create a one-stop shop to help achieve the real change on the ground. And the idea is that can we focus on the forgotten towns and cities concept. So this is not really in the sense of, a really, the forgotten here is mainly to look into the pockets of deprivation and smaller cities where we typically lack the funding and the political visibility. But it could also relate to the bigger cities, like let's say London, and there might be an area or the areas where you might not see a lot of the implementation of the green-blue spaces there. So the whole idea there was to bring this multidisciplinary network of academics, stakeholders, and towards addressing the societal challenges. We are really proud, actually, from where the network started with the 40 partners, and at the moment, we got over 600 members representing over 40 countries. So it's not just being the UK, it's going across the world. And they come from a different background, so there are loads of NGOs, consultancy services, local government, businesses involved in there, but at the same time, they got quite a lot of the different kind of interest areas. You can see the public health, trees, green walls, and so on. And this is still growing. So there is an opportunity there that we created a members online platform. So if you are a member, then you can go and you can search and find the people with the similar interest, or if you're looking for a specific sort of expertise. So if you have not explored that option on the platform, then that might be an opportunity to look into that. We created a resource platform. So this platform is for you to submit your work. It could be a paper, could be a video, the policy briefs, guidances, anything. And the others can have access to it and they can read it. So it's basically facilitating the research access to the other colleagues. So again, this is free, and that's on the Reclaim web page. At the moment, we are working really hard actually to build the GBGI database. This is one of the gaps which we identified in the very beginning, that the data does not exist on a lot of these areas where we wanted to implement. So we need the evidence base. So there has been a series of the synthesis reviews and the other things which is going on. So just to give a very brief the update. So we funded 9 projects, and all those projects are on display outside. So when you go there, you can talk to the colleagues, and they have a fantastic job. And as Professor Collins was telling, they go from urban rewilding to designing the hedges, the green gates, and the back gardens, and so on. So there are fantastic projects. It might be worth actually looking into them. We had a series of synthesis reviews. So one of them was published last month on the urban overheating, looking into the 51 different type of green-blue infrastructure, how do they help to mitigate the urban overheating. And that was just recently profiled by the United Nations Office for the Disaster Risk Reduction. So we are very, very glad to see the impact of those. We have funded around 13 workshops so far. So each of these workshops had been led by the different kind of the groups, and we are not really focusing just on the academics. So it's open to anybody, whether they are parents group, or they are a social group, or they are environmental groups or charities. So you will see the diversity of the funding we have given. We've got the knowledge exchange visit, so we're supporting the colleagues who wants to go and work with their partners, so we can provide them, and that opportunity is still there. We just funded another 4 in the last round. So this is ongoing. There is a monthly webinar series, and we are really proud that we haven't missed a single one, and we have got almost 50 speakers so far. They have spoken about their work on the webinars, and those webinars are not the academic, they are also non-academic people, the businesses, and the colleagues actually who have been working in their own capacity. So it's basically open to kind of the everyone. And obviously this is our second engagement event. We had the first one, and one of the exciting thing you will see is the GBGI photography today. So there is a very interesting stuff actually. You're going to see that, and there is quite a good media coverage all across when we do certain things in there. So I think this is one of the examples which I was just wondering that there is quite a lot of the work which we are going is also been picked up by the international organizations, and this is one of the examples for the United Nations Office, and we're really proud actually that the network is really creating that ecosystem and the database and the evidence base that can help implement those solutions in future, in the cities there. So I think I will just stop here. I can see my co-lead, Professor Lauren Jones, is looking at the watch now. So this is the agenda here. So I think he's going to take over now for the next session. And that session possibly is already late for a few minutes. So it's a good job, hard job actually for Professor Lawrence to take forward from here and make sure that you finish on time. Next one. Okay. Please.
Thank you, Prashant. So we are sort of 10 minutes behind, but we've got lots of time for networking, so it doesn't matter if we eat into that a little bit. But I would encourage speakers to keep to time. So this next session, so Prashant mentioned there were 9 smaller projects funded, so this was a competitive process, so you could apply for a project, and we evaluated this in a rigorous way, and 9 were funded, so we had lots more applications. And today we're just going to hear about 3 of them, so each talk is going to be about 10 minutes. There isn't time for questions, but feel free to go and talk to people afterwards downstairs in the break. And so we're hearing from 3, but the other 6, all the projects have got posters downstairs as well. So I won't go into details. I will just introduce each one. So Issy Bray, do you want to come up and tell us about your project?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm representing an interdisciplinary team from the University of the West of England. Professor Danny Sinnott is here today, and special thanks also to Harry West, who performed all of the analyses for this project. So the background to this is that mental health, particularly for urban populations, is a growing public health concern. And understanding how people relate to and feel a sense of belonging in their urban environment is really important. There's mounting evidence about the importance of green and blue infrastructure for the health and well-being of urban residents, but also emerging evidence about the importance of grey features, for example, historic buildings or active travel routes. So our project seeks to explore relationships between green, blue and grey infrastructure and a range of health and social outcomes in neighbourhoods across Bristol. Previous work has found associations between GBGI provision and health outcomes. For example, we know that there are lower rates of depression in greener areas. But we wanted to look at the mediating role of green, blue, grey infrastructure experience. So we used secondary data to assess relationships between neighbourhood measures of greenness, such as NDVI, residential proximity of GBGI features, and people's experience of GBGI, measured by their satisfaction and use, with health and social outcomes such as neighbourhood satisfaction, life satisfaction, well-being, and general health. We compiled data on GBGI provision from multiple open access sources, and then we used data from the Bristol City Council Quality of Life Survey on people's experiences of GBGI and also their health and social outcomes. So this survey provides an annual snapshot of the quality of life across Bristol. It's been running since 2001 and has approximately 3,000 to 5,000 responses every year. It has up to 190 indicators of quality of life, making it a really rich data source. And we were able to use data from approximately a 10-year period, which was supplied at postcode level by the council. For our analysis, we used spatial analysis and logistic regression models to explore associations between GBGI provision and self-reported health outcomes from this survey. So neighbourhood satisfaction, life satisfaction, well-being, and general health were all considered as binary outcomes. We included GBGI experience in terms of people's satisfaction and use, and other neighbourhood issues such as noise, for example, neighbourhood noise, as predictor variables. And then we controlled for demographics and socioeconomic status. The data we had for this was on qualification income and calendar year. So this table shows the range of data we had on the provision of green, blue, and grey infrastructure. For green, we have tree canopy, we have normalised difference vegetation index, and access to green spaces, woodlands, conservation areas, and outdoor sports facilities. And we also have the coverage of private gardens in an area. For blue, we only actually have water body access, so there's a lot less data available on blue provision. And then for grey, we have access to cycle networks, rail networks, bus stops, roads, social infrastructure, leisure centres, and also the density of historic and listed buildings and the coverage of buildings. And these variables were all calculated as a network distance from postcode centroid or a measure based on a 10-minute walking area. So data about people's experiences of GBGI, their satisfaction with green spaces and with grey infrastructure, is collected through the Quality of Life Survey, as well as data on important neighbourhood issues such as a sense of belonging, safety, noise and litter. The pictures on this slide contrast a well-used park in the centre of town with a space in the middle of a 1930s housing estate in South Bristol, which is rarely used by the local residents. And the point really is to highlight why it's so important to consider the quality of the green spaces and how they're perceived by residents of the city. So for each outcome, we fit a model with all of the GBGI provision and experience variables controlling for calendar year, and then we retained those which were statistically significant. We then controlled for demographic variables and socioeconomic status to arrive at a final model for each of those 4 outcomes. These R-squared values show the proportion of variation in the outcome that can be explained by the final model, and it ranges from about 10% for well-being up to 30 or 40% for neighbourhood satisfaction. So I'm now going to go through the final model for each of the 4 outcome variables. So this is the final model for neighbourhood satisfaction. Most of the variables in this model are on a scale of 1 to 5, from very unsatisfied through to very satisfied. The most important predictors of neighbourhood satisfaction relate to neighbourhood characteristics, things like a sense of belonging in the neighbourhood safety, street litter, and noise. Green space satisfaction is also important, and a change, say, of satisfied to very satisfied increases the likelihood of being satisfied with your neighbourhood by 28%, so quite a big effect size. Satisfaction with many aspects of grey infrastructure is also important, from museums, leisure centres, libraries to bus services. Interestingly, we see a negative effect of living near an outdoor sports facility. It might be explained by the fact that they generally serve a larger area than the local neighbourhood, and they often require paid membership to benefit, for example, a golf club. No demographic or socioeconomic variables were significant in this model. And here's the model for life satisfaction, where we see that neighbourhood issues such as a sense of belonging, safety and noise are still important. Green space satisfaction and leisure centre satisfaction are also still important, but the effect sizes are smaller than they were for neighbourhood satisfaction. Perhaps surprisingly, a higher percentage of private garden coverage in an area is associated with lower life satisfaction, which we were initially surprised about, but then when we thought about it, Clifton, which is a very affluent area, and other similar terraced areas, actually have smaller gardens than the housing estates that are on the edges of the city that are in more deprived areas. So actually, it's not so surprising. Being closer to a bus stop has a negative effect on life satisfaction, which also initially seemed counterintuitive. But we looked at these on a map, and we could see that they're concentrated on the main arteries in and out of the city, where obviously there's going to be a lot more traffic with noise pollution. And areas with a higher density of historic and listed buildings also is a small effect, but they also seem to have a negative effect. But again, these are going to be concentrated in the centre of the city, where housing is more likely to be rented and quite crowded. In this model, demographic factors and socioeconomic status were highly significant. But after controlling for these, distance to accessible woodland and NDVI were marginally significant, which is obviously of interest in terms of green infrastructure. For well-being, you can see there are less significant variables relating to GBGI in this model, but green space satisfaction is important. The effect size is comparable to what it was for life satisfaction, and there's a small positive effect of living near to a rail station. Demographic factors and socioeconomic status were highly significant, but it's worth remembering that this model had the lowest R-squared of all 4 of our models. And then moving on to the last one, which is general health. So for this one, actually no GBGI provision or experience variables were significant predictors of general health. Demographic factors and socioeconomic status were highly significant, and although less significant, higher building coverage was associated with good general health, as was higher vegetation index and green space use. So, in summary, GBGI satisfaction predicts neighbourhood satisfaction more than social demographics. But we saw a sort of hierarchy of needs here. So satisfaction with green and grey infrastructure was important, but only after basic needs, such as feeling safe and part of a community, had been satisfied. For life satisfaction and well-being, a range of GBGI provision and satisfaction variables were significant predictors, but we found that the social demographics were also very important. And then finally, there were less strong associations between GBGI variables and general health. And general health was much more strongly predicted by socio-demographics, such as disability and employment status, level of qualification and income. So in terms of implications for practice, satisfaction with green space was the most consistent predictor of the outcomes considered. Areas in South Bristol, which are more deprived, have similar NDVI and green space access to areas in North Bristol, which is less deprived, but satisfaction in these areas is much lower in South Bristol. We found that garden areas had a negative relationship with life satisfaction, and this emphasises that access to a green space in itself is not an effective measure. Consideration to be given to the quality of green spaces and other improvements to neighbourhood infrastructure in general. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to chatting over coffee.
Thank you very much, Issy. So I'd like to welcome Prashant up to talk about one of the projects in Surrey, in Guildford.
So thank you very much. So I'm standing in for the team. Actually, some of the team members could not make it today. This is a very interesting kind of project, especially for me, and I'm sure that you would possibly like it as well, which not only presents actually a case study, which we aim to roll it out in different schools in the UK, but shows a real collaboration between the parents, the local charity organization, schools, as well as the businesses. So there were like two businesses. The one is Hedra and the other one is Scottscape. They were involved, in the process. So there's a lot of work done by the colleagues there, and there are two of the colleagues today, the Ben McKellen and Paul Cartwright. So I think they are in the audience. So if you wanted to talk to them at some point during the tea or coffee, you can have them. So the whole idea of this project was that can we develop a case study for a school by constructing a green living gate and a green infrastructure along the road perimeter and examining its impact on air quality, noise, perception, as well as on the biodiversity. You might already know that there are thousands of schools in the UK which are along the very busy roadsides there. So what we did is then we brought in the team from this, the six kind of, the partners involved in it. And that include the parent group, that also included an artist actually. So she created this nice little logo, which we haven't used much, but it looks really lovely to see that how it works. So this is, just to cut the whole kind of, the technical background. So this is how the school looks like on the left. And when we were talking to the parent groups there, they said, look, we are really concerned about the pollution going into the school. So we want to do something. I said, okay, what would you like to have actually here? So they tried around it so that we can also influence actually the people's behavior. So what we did is then, so this is how it should look like, ideally. It's an ideal world basically when you do the things on the screen, right? So we had this meeting, and that is in 2022. So as you can see, Paul and Ben there, and myself, one of our PhD students. So she's a local counselor, and the other lady is the head teacher. Actually, she has been, fantastic in taking a lot of these ideas into implementation. So we started thinking about it, and it took us like a few years actually to get to a point where we could see a relevant opportunity for funding, and we applied actually for the Reclaim Network Plus, and this project then started. It's called CoGREEN. So this is how it used to look earlier, and this is how it looks now. So there has been the hedge which has been put by Hedra. So it doesn't look that green actually, because you could see that the previous one is more putting in outside. But the fact is that it's doing the thing actually, so it's inside there, because we could not put the hedge outside. Now, there was one thing which is really interesting and fascinating, and possibly is the first living school gate in the UK. So what it is that you got a very busy road, you can see on the gate there, and this is how this gate looks like. And then we worked with the Scottscape, so there is a company there, and then we have this living gate installed. So that gate is moving, so it moves basically, you know, with the thing. And each of this plant was planted by the children, so they own that plant by themselves. And I heard saying, you know, when it was put in, Mom, I want to come to the school tomorrow because I want to take care of my plant. So this was really a nice kind of thing to see how you can, you know, involve the local communities, but can do that. But now you will see that as a researcher, then what's your interest in there? So the interest for us is to make things happen at the ground and see the impact, but at the same time, then we come up with some sort of a complicated thing like the people do, like when the academics, they love to do that, in terms of what the role play could be for different partners involved in that, like what the school could do, what the Guildford Living Lab, which is the activity which we have been doing around it, the parents, community groups, and the councillors could go. So they all have got something to do in different stages of the work. And then what we did is then before and after, we had a lot of monitoring in the instruments put it in. So we can have the baseline kind of situation in terms of understanding that what is the pollution levels, and then what happens once these things are being put it in. So there were quite a lot of instruments gone into it. And we then looked into the different type of activities and also kind of extended them by, for example, thinking about the student participation. So like these students, they're planting their things, but also then running the biodiversity activity. So the children were looking before and after that what kind of the insects and the things they exist, and then kind of the measuring them, and then running the survey with the parents before and after to understand actually what do they think, how did this make this difference there. So the results were fascinating. The gate one that shows the reduction in the PM10 by 32%, and one thing we did not anticipate was the noise. In fact, that was not in our agenda. And the first thing we heard from the head teacher was, by the way, we can't hear anything now. So it has made a huge difference to the noise. So this was, and then the PM 2.5, is decreased as well. Obviously, you can expect them because it's acting as a barrier. But at the same time, we also see actually there is quite a lot of decay of the concentration with the distance. So it means that more you go away from the gate towards the school, the concentrations will keep going down. So you can see the little box actually which is monitoring the PM, and the equipment are in there. In terms of this, the hedge, because this is very porous, so what we did is we did two type of monitoring there. So the one was the post-installation monitoring. So it was just done after that. And then we waited actually for a couple of months for it to grow a little bit more, and then do the monitoring again. And that is shown almost 1/3 of the pollution being cut. And this is quite a significant kind of, the amount when you're talking about the fresh emissions, and it's like a highly concentrated near the roadside. And one of the things we really realized actually there was that it's just not the wind when it is bringing the pollution to the school. When the winds are parallel, so it means that it also helps actually to contain the emissions on the road itself. So you see the decrease in concentrations was quite high there. So what we're doing at the moment is we are just writing it up, creating the case study and the toolbox, and thinking of creating it in a way that we can have it as a DIY, so it can really be used by the schools, the other schools as well, and try to create this evidence base, which could be used, the more widely. So this is the project. There is a poster outside, so you can talk and learn more about that. But this is it basically from our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prashant. And then the last of our three talks is Sophie Roberts from Bangor University.
Morning, everyone. So my name is Sophie Roberts. I'm from Bangor University, just as Lauren said, and I'm going to talk about the Rhyl project. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we did. And the purpose of the project was to model the benefits of existing and planned green infrastructure in Rhyl. So that was step one. And step two was to gather social data and assess communities' perceptions of these environmental changes that were happening in their neighbourhood. So it was a collaborative project between Bangor University, the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and Denbighshire County Council, and it ran from December 2022 to September 2023. And today I'm going to just look back at what we did, for those of you that aren't aware of the project or haven't heard about it before. And I'm going to look a little bit forward as well to what we did since the project. And it's just going to be a really quick overview because we've got a short session now, but I have got a poster outside and I'm happy to talk more in the break. So please come and find me. And for the benefits of anybody who's not familiar with Rhyl or North Wales, I just thought I'll stick a map up there. It's always handy to visualise if you're not sure. And you'll notice as well on the slide that tree cover in Rhyl is quite low. Professor Collins mentioned in the opening address that it's a grey area. Well, yes, it is certainly in parts under 6% tree cover in Rhyl. And it's a deprived area as well. It's home to some of the most deprived wards in Wales. So that's just a bit of a backdrop. Right, so yeah, our project had two main strands, I guess. So one, to model the benefits of green infrastructure, and two, to gather and analyse the social data. And this was part of that first strand, delivered by the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, to measure and model the benefits of existing and planned GI in Rhyl. And they ran 5 eco-service system models. Ecosystem service models, I had that written down as well and I made it up, mistake. Ecosystem service models developed for urban settings. So you can see that air pollution, noise mitigation, carbon storage, flood protection and urban cooling. And what they found was that a hectare of trees could provide a whole host of benefits with an economic value of over £3,500 based on data for Denbighshire. I'm not going to run through it all now, but you can see noise, air and carbon storage with their related values. And we're thinking about best practice in today's conference, and I thought, well, this sort of information really can help support best practice for local authorities, for town planners, for those that are responsible for urban greening in their location, because such performance figures for 1 hectare of trees allows council officers or similar to really add up these multifunctional benefits and incorporate them into their plans for future greening or, you know, as part of their climate mitigation strategies that they want to deliver. So really useful data there. And then the next package was all about gathering and analysing social data. So we developed an online survey, firstly, a quick 5-minute survey to go out to gather people's thoughts about whether they want to see more, environmental changes in their neighbourhoods. And it went out to 1,866 people nationally, and we also captured 60 responses in Rhyl. I have not got time to go through all of it this morning, but I'm sure you can see on the screen. So purple means people want more, and there's more purple than anything else. So one of the takeaways is that generally people wanted to see more trees and wildflower meadows, which is good. But we also found that what went where really mattered. You might not be able to make it out so well on the screen, but it is on the poster that, people had preferences for where trees went and where wildflower meadows went, and they weren't necessarily the same preferences for different types of GI, and there were differences between our Rhyl sample and national sample as well. But I can talk to you all about that if you're interested later on. So, as well as the online survey, we decided, because Rhyl was our case study, that we should really, speak to people in Rhyl to find out more about what they think beyond a 5-minute online survey. So we conducted interviews in person in Rhyl in the library with 28 individuals, a random stratified sample of Rhyl residents, to really capture their thoughts in a a neutral space with me, a neutral person. I'm not from Rhyl, to ask them what they thought about these GI schemes. And yeah, the vast majority were really supportive, and they were also really interested. So local authorities often hear from unhappy voices when things are being changed. Nobody likes change really, I guess. But in this instance, people were coming along to share positive views, which was really nice, but also to share, their thoughts about, well, have you considered planting X here or Y there? Why aren't you developing more here? So really useful insights as well. So yeah, vast majority were supportive and interested. But what was particularly interesting for me was that one of our biggest hits, garnet things of support was that 100% of our interviewees said that the health and well-being benefits of trees and wildflower meadows were important to them personally. So that's the thing that was most important. That's the only thing that scored 100%, health and well-being. So I put this slide together just to kind of illustrate that point a bit more. So these speech bubbles are from the interview transcripts, and then it's not all of them, so it's just a few where they really emphasise health and well-being and the importance of it when they were thinking about green spaces. Not something I'd anticipated at the beginning of the project, and if I knew now if I knew then what I know now, I might have done more with this. But at the time, I wasn't thinking that would be the top thing that would come up, so it was a bit of a surprise. But I'm going to come back to this at the end of the talk. So bear that in mind. But back to now, because the focus of today is all about best practice and involving communities, I thought I'd just share a bit of what we did at the end. So we produced a report for Denbighshire County Council, and we also synthesised our findings into a policy brief. The policy brief is available online. I've got a QR code at the end, so if you're quick, you can take a picture of that, or I can share with you later so you can read more about that. Thinking about best practice and involving communities, in this instance, that was the best practice, I guess. It was to listen to people, to involve them, this idea of co-creation, to listen where things should go, what should go where, what it should be called, possibly not a wildflower meadow, if that's confusing to some people. And it just increases support for what the council has to do anyway. The council's going to be doing this anyway. So this sort of community involvement and working together would, it's just a win-win. So we learned that, and people were just so interested to find out more why this is happening and how they could possibly get involved as well. And that was that. So that was the end of the project, but the journey does continue, and we've been doing some work since. So we applied to Reclaim to host a workshop. Because of this health and wellbeing angle that came up, we thought it would be really good to explore this further, to bring more voices around the table, to think about green spaces through the lens of health and wellbeing. So that's exactly what we did. And we held it in February in Bangor, and we brought together academics, public health experts, local councils, community groups and individuals all together to explore the topic. And I think we had 28 people come on the day, which was really good. And it was a dry day, so we could also go outside and look at some green spaces. And so that's a picture from the day. So we asked the question, what do people across various levels of experience think about managing green space on a local council level through the lens of health and wellbeing? So we invited deliberation into the challenges, where we want to be, and how we can get there. And it enabled us to find out more about the barriers, the enablers, with a wider group of stakeholders than Rhyl, and more coastal towns as well. So it's just really exciting to be sort of developing more, and it's sort of like Avengers Assemble type thing. It felt like lots of people singing on the same hymn sheet coming together to discuss this topic. And that's it from me. So it's been a really amazing project. I hope I've given you a flavour of what we've done in this 10-minute talk, and I learned so much myself as well, so I'm happy to talk about it later. Please come and talk to me at my poster. I'm wearing the same t-shirt as last year, so I'm easily found. Scan the QR code, takes you to the website with more information. And thanks for listening, and I'm on time. Thank you.